Welcome. Um, it's wonderful to know you are there, and we once again can meet for this time of in-depth reflection together. Although some of us have been doing this, walking the journey of life together for some years now, whenever we do take time to speak on this YouTube system, there are always people who are joining us by accident or by invitation from someone, joining us for the first time. And it's important, if you forgive me, I stress something again. You see, mostly we turn on our television and look at a program for either entertainment or information. It boils down to one or the other. We want some information, or we want some entertainment, relax, laugh, joke, it doesn't matter. These series of reflections are quite different. Certainly, we're not aiming to hand out information. You may meet things that you haven't heard of before. It may be quite useful information, but that is not the purpose of the series. And it certainly isn't meant for entertainment, things you can laugh at and let go. It is important. So we're here for stimulation, really putting life and energy into that part of our life's journey that we so often neglect with all the pressures of today's world, all today's human family on the move, or trying not to move, sit down and wait until it all gets better. Stimulating our power of reflection on what is happening to me by what is happening to society, to humanity, to our cosmos as a whole. So I'm looking in and out, the small, the wide. Now, this is going to take time, not just the half hour or so you've given this morning or today to follow this YouTube video, but during the month that's coming. It's going to take time when you sit back and really listen to yourself, reflecting on the life you're leading, and on the life you're leading, how influenced it is by the life of the whole human community at the moment. So here's the downline. If you're not prepared to give the time, you're wasting your time at this moment listening. So just switch this program off and go and do something else more useful. There aren't many people, I think, you get on television who tell you either do this or it's a waste of time, go away and do something else. But I am telling you seriously, this is something we do for each other as companions. We're all on life's journey. And the stimulation to reflection, and then the sharing of our reflection is most important. It's the work we're doing here. So that's what we're doing this morning. How do we do it? Well, each month we take a theme. No set questions and therefore no set answers. Exploration, stimulation and exploration. We've had a theme so far in this present series. We had a question that came from the Olympic Games. Is life for me sport or a game? The second one was depression. One of the effects of the COVID pandemic worldwide is to make us more depressed. What is it doing? In other words, it's making us afraid of taking a risk on the outcome of something we're not sure of. And that is depressing energy and new life. The third one was protest, because we're all very familiar now on world news of tens of thousands of people getting out onto the streets of their big cities, shouting in protest that something is being done or it's not being done by the government or by whoever. And one of the most well-known, of course, of people, tens of thousands of people shouting, not because the climate's changing, but so much the why it's changing. The use of fuel, oil, etc., for heating, for industry, and how that is changing our climate worldwide. And so protest, depression, sport or game have been three of our themes. And today, we got a new one. This one is global village with a question mark. Okay. Now, where did that come from? Well, I'm quite sure most of you follow the world news in some way or another, and therefore probably remember that it's only, I think, less than a week ago still, that we all saw on television a meeting between two of the world's principal political leaders, two men who we would say were immensely powerful in their governments. One was the president of China, and the other the president of the United States. And they had a summit meeting, these two men at the top of world powers, virtual. In other words, they didn't meet in a room, they met on the media the way we are doing. Whether it was Zoom or Skype or what, who knows. But that is how they met. And they had their summit meeting. And they talked about most of the things we would have expected. One of the main issues, and China said, this is fire. Don't play with fire, America. And that was America telling China virtually, Taiwan does not belong to you. Take your hands off. And China saying back, Taiwan doesn't belong to you either. You take your hands off. China, they're Chinese people. They speak Chinese. Their culture is Chinese. They are important to us as an offshore base. So we have the right. And America says, no, they are independent. We are going to defend their independence, etc. We know the story. We know the techniques. We know the tactics. But at one point in this very familiar sort of discussion and challenge between China and the USA, the president of China said to the president of the USA, Mr. Biden, we are living in a global village. A global village. Is that planet Earth now? Are we all villagers on planet Earth? That statement must have been one of the most important political statements that we've heard thrung across television, no matter how often we've listened to political broadcasts. Mr. President, we are now living in a global village. Now, what is a village like? What is life in a village like? Okay. The issue behind that statement was who has the power to control the small island of Taiwan, or the powerful island of Taiwan? a village. If you have lived in a village in any country in your life, then you have your own immediate experience to go on. You start looking at that. What was your experience of village life? Its characteristics, its opportunities, its disadvantages, how it's changing. If your family always lived out in villages. If not, then begin to look it up and think about it. Are we really now living in a global village? Meaning what? Who has the power? Just one or two countries, numerically powerful, economically powerful, powerful with their use of technology, powerful with their preparation for warfare, atomic warfare, of course. We're not talking about guns. What are the characteristics of village life anyway? Well, you have to start off with your own experience or lack of experience and find out what you think village life has as an advantage or a disadvantage over life in a city, for example. The alternative. You're either connected to the human family one way or the other. There are some people who prefer to be hermits and wanderers in caves anywhere, neither belonging to the village community nor out on their own with servants and so on. But most of us live either in an industrial community of some sort or a village community closer to nature. Still, it takes some time to explore your own experience, your own thinking about village life and what has happened to it in more recent years in only your own life, your own lifespan. I told you there are no fixed questions, no fixed answers. This is exploration, a stimulation to really find the truth of your experience and the grounds for which you have formed your opinions as to what the advantages and disadvantages of village life are. Okay, so you've started around to play around with that. Your own experience. I was not brought up to live in a village, an estate, a housing area, but not a village. But the housing estate also had certain characteristics of a village. How much do your neighbors know about you? How much do they control what you choose to do? And so on. Are they all the negative effects of village life? A few years ago, and I say I haven't lived in a village, Diquelle is on the outskirts of a village here in the middle of Austria, and it was celebrating, this particular village, Deckenskirchen, was celebrating 800 years of its existence. It was one of the stopping places for those who would travel between North Europe and Rome on the salt route, salt being a very expensive and important commodity. And this was one of the stopping places. Not many, of course, but this was just one. But it has 800 years of history since then. It still exists as a village. And the celebration was in the small square, and to it came, I don't know whether he was a local bishop, but he was some church dignitary who came to say the Mass and then to have a speech about village life. And in that he said to the villagers of the contemporary Deccanskirche, the contemporary village, you have survived so long because you were always ready to help each other, and you always welcomed the stranger. Now that was the unique line, because one of the characteristics of village life, and I have at least seen that lived out, is that everyone can call on his neighbor. If he has a sudden collapse in the barn or something, his neighbors will find time to come round and help him mend the damage or whatever. Your neighbors will help, and you will always find time to help your neighbor. But welcoming the stranger is not always a characteristic of a village. Protection from the wider, unknown, more powerful world. Many people who live in a city live with a village mentality where this is concerned. No welcome of the stranger. Everything must be under my control. I must know about, and so on. Okay, now this is all food for stimulating your reflection on your own life experience. That's the point, your own life experience. And when you get around to sharing this, your reflection with somebody else, it will be enriched enormously. So, village. When the president of China was threatening the United States that he really was not with it, he was not on the ball, when he was talking about two immense powers meeting over the island of Taiwan, when he snapped back, but more or less, wake up, we are not living there any longer. We are living, planet Earth is now, people living on planet Earth are living as though they were in a village, but a global village. Okay. Have a look and see what's happening to youth. Would they agree with China? The youth that you know? The young men in their late teens and 20s, early 20s. Are they likely to say? In one way, because of the media communication, because of the fact that travel, the need to travel, has been reduced radically when we can meet every country in the world in picture and sound and contact, other than touch. How important is that? That you actually can touch the hand of another person if you want to have contact with that person. Or can you do it by seeing what they look like, and they see what you look like, and you can talk about any subject, and you can express the fact that you are feeling happy or sad, and you can sing, and you can eat and drink with them, but there's no touch at all. Anyway, just ask around and see what people think. You still help each other, sharing the work of the village or not. In the village we live in Dikwele here, we've seen more and more of the youth growing up who've moved away as fast as they can into the cities. Job opportunity, entertainment, more variety, travel, at least until COVID came along, was the main game. And everybody wanted to travel. I wonder what will happen when we've calmed COVID down. Why should you travel? You can talk to the boss of China by just switching on your television. Okay. Now, you may say, well, village life, whatever I think about it, it's never really been my experience, and it isn't my daily experience now. But perhaps some of the characteristics, the good and the challenge and the difficulties that I would get from living in a village, I also get from living in the new communities, the high-rise communities. These are familiar landscapes now. These are office blocks, places where people work in hundreds. But they're also housing, where we live in a house of many, many, many stories and large numbers of rooms. So I live going in and out of a building without perhaps seeing my neighbors on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, not really knowing who they are or how they live their lives. On the other hand, the other characteristics of village life, because it's also enormous numerically, I cut down my family experience, my social experience, to a few people within this huge complex. A high-rise community or a village community? What do they have in common? What characteristics? Which challenges? And would you choose one rather than the other, if you could? And what is society choosing? The humanity around the world. High-rise? Return to the village? It's up to us. We can look at some of we think are the surface negative results of high-rise community life. A loss of originality. All the houses, all the apartments are the same inside. Okay, you may decorate your walls a different color and have different curtains or drapes at the window, but the room is still the same shape and serves the same purpose. So perhaps in high-rise community, there's the fear of a loss of originality, to be different. Fear of difference, fear of risk. And on the other hand, if it becomes too painful, the fight to be different. Okay. So whether we live in a global village or we live in a high-rise apartment, we have been talking now for some time for living in a cosmic world with cosmic dimensions. The Earth could be a village because it's only a spot in one galaxy, a tiny little planet over there. And this is becoming, the last 60 years, we have been in space. So anyone who's 60 or over was not brought up in a cosmic village or a global village, whether we realized it or not. We had already walked away and into the space, into cosmic dimension. And if you talk to the youth today, you realize they don't think in terms of the globe of Earth being the center of the universe, in the center of the cosmos. It obviously isn't. We've got plenty of Hubble photographs around. Have a look and see where we are and how important or unimportant is our position in the cosmos. How important, how unimportant are our adventures, our discoveries about the moon, for example. If we're living on a global village on planet Earth, if our huge planet Earth has come down to the proportions of a village, it's because we're aware of the cosmic dimensions, or some of them, in which we live also. There's still a long way to go. We've only just taken our first very frightened steps in space. But they have been taken. And what effect have they had on me? What effect have they had on the whole of humanity on this planet? 60 years ago, humanity was released from the confines of this earth. No longer confined to planet Earth. Have we given up the sense of ownership? Can we really think of owning anything of creation which we have not created? We cannot create. Who are we? Now, yes, we have started to move this way, and we can quote another politician, another Mr. President, this time of the United Nations of the world, not just China or America, but the United Nations of the world. And the president of the United Nations, the then president, said a number of years ago, "Oh, how small we are. How small we are. And our happiness rests only in the one who is great." Was he talking about a country? Was he talking about a cultural tradition or a skin color? No, of course not. Those belong to village life on planet Earth. We've been released from that now for 60 years. Where are we now? Where am I now? I'm no longer with the advantages and the disadvantages of village life. As Mr. President of China was trying to remind us, stop acting as though Earth was only a village. Think where we are in space. Think how small we are, how insignificant we are. What is our role here? If we are so insignificant, where is reality? Where is the truth? Have you found it in your life? Have I found it in my life? Do I know which way I'm walking? At least the first steps. We have a great deal to take us into this next month of reflection. And I only hope you really do make the effort to find somebody else to share with, to hear their experiences and their challenges and what they are seeking, as well as share yours. This is the only way humanity is going to survive, let alone grow. And we have been warned by that. You go back to another great leader, not a political leader this time, a theologian and a scientist. Either we have to enter in to the fullness of our humanity, which is the mystical quality, the mystical experience, or we'll go on. Either we become mystics or we will not be. Tadashana, 40 years ago, he could see that and was telling us that. So we're moving in every time we meet and we take a theme from today's life, the life of humanity, the life, my own life and family and so on, and begin to explore it. We're moving the whole human family. Don't reduce what you're doing here to something of less importance than it is. It's a wonderful gift we have been given. All of us, individually and collectively. So I wish you a most wonderful month of exploration and real stimulation. And we meet together, hopefully, next month. And in the meantime, having shared this theme and learned and expanded, so we can move into the next one. Thank you for being here. And thank you too for Walter Pippick, who does the basic work of getting me to the computer to have these few words with you. And thank you for your patience. As you can see, in this part of the world, we're in the most miserable end of autumn, beginning of winter weather, where I have landed with a cold and a voice that's not very attractive or helpful. And so forgive me for that too, but we didn't want to lose the month. This is it. So this month, it's cold. Next month, it's sunny. My body adapts to it. Your body adapts to it. Our minds adapt to the most important crisis that's come to us socially. And so we live. But the basic thing, the one essential, as Havishol said, that which alone is great, the one creative force, which we've called God and by 1,000 other names, that alone is what we're eventually listening to and being led by. So have a wonderful month, and I hope to meet you again. If there's any chance that we can meet individually or in small groups or anything by the media, please arrange it, because there's no problem. At least I hope there'll be no problem. Thank you.